The phone call that stopped my heart. My name is Veronica Moretti. I'm 52 years old, and for 20 years I've run Veronica's Bloom, the biggest wholesale flower empire in the entire state. Roses, peonies, rare orchids. If it blooms, my greenhouses have grown it, my trucks have delivered it, and my hands have arranged it. I built everything from nothing after Jessica's father walked out when she was 3. It was always just the two of us against the world, or so I thought. That morning started like any other. I was in the middle of the flower market at 5 a.m. checking the new shipment of Dutch tulips when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. "Hello, Mrs. Moretti?" A man's voice, calm, professional. "This is Daniel Cho from Pacific Trust Realty. I'm calling to confirm the final walkthrough of your property on Willow Lane tomorrow at noon. The buyers are very excited. Cash offer, 30-day close. Congratulations on the sale." I laughed because it had to be a mistake. "I think you have the wrong Veronica Moretti. My house isn't for sale." A short pause. "Ma'am, we have signed listing agreements, power of attorney, and escrow opened last week. Your daughter Jessica Moretti and her fiancé Ryan Caldwell as sellers. The deed is already in processing." The world tilted. The smell of fresh lilies suddenly made me nauseous. I gripped the edge of a crate so hard a thorn went straight through my glove and into my palm, but I didn't feel the pain. "Send me everything," I whispered. My voice didn't even sound like mine. 20 minutes later, the emails arrived. My own daughter's signature, my own house, my childhood home, the one I paid off with blood and sleepless nights.
20 years of building. Veronica's Bloom from nothing. People always ask me how I turned a folding table at the Saturday Farmers Market into a flower empire that supplies every 5-star hotel and celebrity wedding within 300 miles. The answer is simple. I had no choice. When Jessica was 3, her father decided that being a husband and dad was too much pressure. One Tuesday, he kissed us goodbye, said he was going to buy cigarettes, and never came back. No note, no child support, no phone call on her birthday, ever. Just gone. I had $312 in the bank, a toddler who only ate macaroni, and a beat-up station wagon with 180,000 miles on it. The first weekend after he left, I spent $87 buying half-dead clearance flowers from the grocery store, trimmed them in my kitchen sink at midnight, and sold them the next morning for $600. I cried the whole drive home, not because I was sad, but because I realized I could do it again, and again, and again. Within a year, I rented a tiny greenhouse nobody wanted because the roof leaked. I patched it with plastic sheeting and prayers. Jessica learned to walk between rows of snapdragons. She learned numbers by counting stems. She learned colors by naming every shade of ranunculus we grew. By the time she was 10, she could tie a perfect corsage faster than I could. I never took a salary the first 5 years. Every dollar went back into soil, bulbs, cooler units, delivery vans. I slept in the greenhouse office on an air mattress so I could water at 3 a.m. if the temperature dropped. My hands were permanently stained green, my nails split, my back always sore. But every time a bride cried happy tears holding one of my bouquets, I felt like I was winning the war against the man who said I'd never make it alone. Year 8, we landed the contract for the governor's daughter's wedding. Year 12, we supplied the floral decor for a superstar's secret proposal that made the cover of People magazine. Year 15, I bought the land on Willow Lane, 10 acres of perfect soil, built my dream house with the wraparound porch Jessica used to draw in crayon when she was little. Paid cash, no mortgage, mine. By the time Jessica turned 25, Veronica's Bloom was doing 8 figures a year. We had 3 greenhouses, 2 refrigerated trucks, 30 employees who felt like family, and a waiting list for our exclusive peony varieties that stretched 2 years long. I was proud, exhausted, and finally, safe. I thought the worst was behind us. Jessica graduated college with a business degree I paid for. moved back home to help Mom, and brought Ryan with her. Ryan Caldwell, charming, polished, always in a tailored suit even when he was just picking up coffee. He called me Mom within the first month, said he wanted to learn the ropes and take the company to the next level. I was flattered. I was tired. I handed him the keys to the office, the passwords to the accounts, and stupidly, my trust. I told myself I was giving my daughter the future. I was actually handing them the matches to burn my entire life down. Looking back, the signs were there. Jessica stopped asking how my day was and started asking how much the land was worth if we ever sold. Ryan spent hours streamlining the books but never showed me the new spreadsheets. They whispered in the kitchen late at night when they thought I was asleep. I ignored it all because I wanted to believe blood doesn't lie. The day I collapsed at the flower market, I was carrying a crate of white hydrangeas, heavier than my own heart. I remember thinking, if I drop these, Jessica will be so disappointed. That was the last normal thought I had before everything went black. When I woke up in the hospital, Jessica was crying beautifully at my bedside, mascara perfect even in grief. She squeezed my hand and said, "Mom, you don't have to fight anymore. We've got you." I thought she meant emotionally, she meant financially, she meant permanently. And that's when the real story began. The one where the woman who built an empire from broken stems learned how to grow something even stronger from pure betrayal. Introducing my daughter, Jessica, and her perfect fiance, Ryan. Jessica was always had that magic. Even as a little girl, she could walk into a room and every head turned, not because she demanded attention, but because she glowed. Big hazel eyes, my mother's cheekbones, and a laugh that sounded like wind chimes on a summer night. I used to call her my living bouquet, because she was the most beautiful thing I'd ever grown. She was 27 when she brought Ryan home for the first time. Tall, square-jawed, sandy blonde hair, always perfectly messy, the kind of smile that belongs in toothpaste commercials. He wore expensive watches but rolled up his sleeves to help me unload lilies at 4 a.m. without being asked. He listened when I talked about soil pH and root rot, like it was the most fascinating subject in the world. Within 10 minutes, he had me laughing. Within an hour, he had Jessica blushing. And within a week, he had the entire staff calling him boss man, like it was already official. He told me his story over coffee on my porch. Parents got in a car accident when he was 19, worked 3 jobs to finish business school, built a small real estate investment company from scratch. "I know what it's like to fight for every inch, Mrs. M," he said, using the nickname only Jessica ever used. "That's why I admire you so much." I melted. A mother wants nothing more than to believe her child found someone who sees her the way she sees her child. I saw it in the way Ryan brushed Jessica's hair behind her ear, the way he carried heavy buckets so she wouldn't ruin her manicure, the way he talked about our future, like the 3 of us were already a team. 6 months later, he proposed on the rooftop of the new greenhouse, surrounded by thousands of white roses I'd grown specially for the occasion. Jessica came running into my office crying happy tears, ring flashing like a star. "Mom, say yes," she laughed. I thought she meant to the wedding. I said yes to everything, to him moving into the guest house, to giving him signing authority on the business accounts, just in case something happens to me, to adding his name to the safety deposit box, to letting him handle the insurance policies to take the load off you. I told my best friend Carla, "He's the son I never had." Carla raised an eyebrow but said nothing. The red flags were tiny back then. Ryan asking casual questions about property values in our county. Jessica suddenly obsessed with how much the land under the greenhouses was worth if we ever expanded. Ryan printing out my will to make sure it's up to date. Me laughing it off because, come on, they're family now. I even caught him once taking photos of the house interior on his phone, wide-angle shots of every room. "Listing ideas for when you downsize someday," he winked. "You deserve to travel, Veronica." I felt flattered. I felt old. I felt taken care of. The night before I collapsed, the 3 of us had dinner on the porch. Ryan raised his glass and said, "To the strongest woman I know, and to the day we make sure she never has to work another sunrise again." Jessica's eyes shone with tears. I thought they were tears of love. Now I know they were tears of countdown. Because 3 days later, while I was fighting for my life in the ICU, Ryan was meeting with realtors, and Jessica was signing my name on listing agreements. They weren't waiting for me to retire. They were waiting for me to die. But the joke was on them, because I wasn't planning on dying anytime soon. And when a woman who has built an empire with nothing but dirt under her nails decides she's not finished yet, well, hell itself steps aside. Hell. The day I collapsed at the flower market, it was a Tuesday, 4:47 a.m., the sky still bruised purple. The flower market was alive with the usual chaos, forklifts beeping, vendors shouting prices in 3 languages, buckets of roses dripping condensation on the concrete. I was in my element, wearing the same faded green apron I'd had for 15 years, hair twisted up with a pencil, bargaining for 2,000 stems of blush peonies that had to be perfect for a celebrity wedding that weekend. I remember the exact moment everything went wrong. I bent to lift a crate of hydrangeas, big, heavy, ice blue heads the size of dinner plates, and felt a strange flutter in my chest. I ignored it. I'd been ignoring little flutters for weeks. Tightness when I climbed the greenhouse stairs, dizziness when I stood up too fast, nights where my left arm went numb. I told myself it was stress. Jessica's wedding planning was expensive. Ryan kept talking about scaling the business, and I was burning the candle at every possible end. I hoisted the crate. The flutter turned into a hammer, then a lightning bolt straight through my ribs. I staggered backward, knocked over a tower of buckets. Water and lilies crashed everywhere. I heard someone scream my name, Veronica! And then the world tilted sideways. The last thing I saw was the peonies I'd fought so hard to get, lying crushed and ruined on the wet floor, petals the color of fresh blood. Next thing I knew, I was on a stretcher, oxygen mask over my face, paramedics shouting numbers I didn't understand. One of them kept saying, "Stay with us, ma'am, stay with us." I tried to tell them I had a 6 a.m. delivery to the Ritz-Carlton, but no sound came out. In the ambulance, I floated in and out. I remember thinking, if I die right now, Jessica will have to handle everything alone, and then feeling guilty for even thinking it. I remember the paramedic holding my hand and saying, "You're a fighter, I can tell." I remember whispering, "My daughter. Tell her I love her." They rushed me into the ER, code something. Paddles, drugs, doctors shouting. I learned later, my heart had stopped twice on the table. When they finally stabilized me, the cardiologist came in wearing the face people wear when they have to deliver a death sentence with a smile. "Mrs. Moretti, you've had a massive heart attack. The damage is significant. We're going to keep you sedated for a few days to give your heart a chance to rest." I drifted off again, thinking, a few days, I can afford a few days. Jessica and Ryan will manage. I had no idea that while I was lying there with tubes in every vein, my daughter was sitting in a real estate office across town signing papers that transferred ownership of my house into a trust, with her and Ryan as sole trustees, because Mom isn't expected to recover. I had no idea that Ryan was already texting investors. Property will be free and clear within weeks. Elderly owner terminal. I had no idea that the bouquet of white lilies beside my hospital bed, the one with the card that read, "Get well soon, we love you, Jess and Ryan," had been ordered from a completely different florist, because they'd already quietly canceled all my vendor accounts to reduce stress on Mom. The only thing I knew, in that drugged, terrified haze, was the smell of lilies and the soft sound of Jessica crying at my bedside, whispering over and over, "It's okay, Mom. We're handling everything. Just rest." I believed her. I believed her with every weak beat of my broken heart. And that blind, stupid, mother-love trust is exactly what they were counting on. 5. Waking up to Jessica. Holding my hand and my house keys. I came back to the world slowly, like surfacing from deep water. First the beeping, then the antiseptic smell, then the pain in my chest that felt like an elephant was still sitting on it. My eyes fluttered open to harsh hospital lights, and the sight of Jessica's face inches from mine, eyes swollen, cheeks streaked with tears. "Mom?" Her voice cracked. Mom, you're awake. She squeezed my hand so hard the IV tugged. I tried to speak, but my throat was raw from the breathing tube. All I could do was blink. She started crying harder, pressing my knuckles to her lips the way she did when she was 6 and had nightmares. You scared us so much, she whispered. The doctors, they said you might not wake up. I saw Ryan standing behind her, arms folded, face pale but composed. He gave me a small, relieved smile and mouthed, "Welcome back, Mom." For a few minutes it felt real. My baby girl holding my hand, terrified of losing me. The monitors slowed, the nurse smiled. The world felt soft again. Then Jessica reached into her purse and pulled out my house keys. The big brass ring with the worn leather fob I'd had since Jessica was in kindergarten. She set them gently on the bedside table. "I brought these from home," she said, voice trembling. "We've been staying there to take care of the plants and the dogs. I didn't want you worrying about anything." I managed a tiny nod. My eyelids were heavy, the morphine pulling me back under, but I remember thinking how sweet it was that she'd thought to water my orchids. If I'd been more awake, I might have noticed 3 things. The keys weren't on my usual ring. They were on a brand new silver ring, the kind real estate agents use for listings. Ryan's eyes kept flicking to the keys, then to his phone, then to the door, like he was timing something. Jessica's tears dried awfully fast once she thought I'd drifted off again. I didn't see any of it. I was just grateful my little girl was there. Later that afternoon, when the sedation wore off a little more, Jessica sat stroking my hair and said the words that should have sounded comforting but somehow landed like stones in my stomach. "Mom, the doctors told us your heart is really damaged. They're saying 6 months, maybe less, if you don't rest completely." 6 months. The number echoed. I'd just turned 52. I still had orders for next year's Peony Festival. I still had dreams of opening a second location in Napa. Jessica kept talking, soft and soothing. "So Ryan and I have been handling everything. The house, the business accounts, the bills. You don't have to worry about a single thing. We even moved some money around so there's cash ready for whatever treatment you need." I tried to ask questions, but my voice was barely a croak. She shushed me gently. "Rest, Mom. We've got it all under control. Promise." Ryan stepped closer, laid a warm hand on my shoulder. "You raised an incredible daughter, Veronica. She's stepping up in ways you'd be so proud of." I closed my eyes, overwhelmed, grateful, drugged, and fragile. I didn't see Jessica and Ryan exchange a look over my bed, the kind of look 2 people share when the plan is working perfectly. I didn't hear Ryan whisper to her in the hallway 10 minutes later. "Stage 2 is done. The trust is signed. As soon as the doctor files the terminal prognosis, the house is ours to sell." I didn't know that while I slept, Jessica posted on my personal Facebook, from my own phone, an update that read, "Thank you for the prayers. Mom is resting comfortably, but the road ahead is short. Please respect our privacy." I only knew that my daughter was holding my hand and my house keys, and that I felt safer than I had in years. Sometimes the most dangerous betrayal wears the softest smile and smells like the same perfume your child has worn since prom night. 6. Doctor's words. 6 months left. The lie that started everything. 3 days after I woke up, the cardiologist walked in with a face full of practiced sorrow. Dr. Patel was young, kind eyes, clipboard clutched like a shield. Jessica and Ryan sat on either side of my bed, holding my hands like we were posing for a family Christmas card. "Mrs. Moretti," he began, voice gentle, "the damage from the heart attack is irreversible. Your ejection fraction is critically low, even with maximum medication and lifestyle changes. I'm sorry, but we're looking at 6 months, possibly less." The room went silent, except for the monitors. Jessica let out a broken sob and buried her face in my shoulder. Ryan's grip tightened, his jaw clenched like a hero in a movie. I just stared at the ceiling tiles, counting the little black dots, trying to breathe. 6 months. I thought of the tulip bulbs I'd ordered from Holland that wouldn't bloom until next spring. I thought of Jessica walking down the aisle in the dress I'd already paid for. I thought of my dogs waiting at home, confused why I hadn't come back. Dr. Patel kept talking about palliative care, hospice options, quality of life. I barely heard him. When he left, Jessica crawled into the bed beside me, crying so hard the nurses didn't have the heart to stop her. "I can't lose you, Mom," she kept saying. "Please fight, please." Ryan stood at the foot of the bed, eyes red, voice thick. "We're going to make these months the best of your life, Veronica. No stress, no work, no worries. We'll take care of everything." I believed every word. That night, alone with the darkness and the morphine drip, I made my peace. I wrote letters in my head to old friends. I decided to sell the business while I still could, give Jessica and Ryan the future they deserved. I even felt relieved in a strange way. My little girl would be safe. I had no idea the entire conversation had been rehearsed. 2 weeks later, 2 agonizing weeks later, I found out the truth by accident. I was being moved to a regular room. A nurse named Maya, sweet girl Filipino, always humming, was helping me into a wheelchair when my chart slipped off the bed. Papers scattered everywhere. Maya scrambled to pick them up, apologizing, but one sheet slid under the bed caught my eye. It was a consultation note dated the same day Dr. Patel gave me 6 months. Only the note didn't say 6 months. It said, "Patient stable, LVEF 38%. Aggressive medical management and cardiac rehab recommended. Good long-term prognosis with lifestyle changes." I stared at it until the letters blurred. Then I saw the second page, an email printout tucked inside the chart, from Ryan's email address to Dr. Patel. Per our discussion, we need the prognosis to reflect terminal status for legal financial purposes. The mother-in-law is trusting and won't question it. Generous donation to the Hospital Foundation forthcoming. Thank you for your discretion. My blood turned to ice. I looked up at Maya. She was frozen, eyes wide, realizing what I'd seen. "Mrs. Moretti?" she whispered. I put a finger to my lips, shaking. That was the moment I stopped being the dying mother and started becoming the woman who would make them regret ever thinking I was. Because the doctor hadn't lied on his own. He'd been paid to lie. And my own daughter had sat there, holding my hand while he delivered the death sentence that would let them steal my life while I still had years left to live. 6 months? I was going to give them 6 months they would never forget. 7. Ryan's sudden concern for my estate and will. The day after the fake 6 months diagnosis, Ryan showed up with a leather briefcase and a smile number 7, the one he used when he wanted to look like a loving son-in-law. He pulled the visitor chair right up to my bed, opened the briefcase like a magician, and laid out a thick stack of papers with color-coded tabs. "Hey, champ," he said softly, using the nickname he'd started after I taught him how to prune roses. "Jessica's grabbing coffee, so it's just us. I need to talk grown-up stuff with you." I was still foggy from painkillers, but I nodded. He slid the first document toward me, a brand new last will and testament, my name at the top, dated 2 days ago. "I had our estate attorney draft this," he said. "You've worked so hard, Veronica. We just want to make sure everything goes exactly where you want it. No probate headaches for Jess when, you know." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. The word "when" hung in the air like smoke. I looked down. Page 1. Everything: house, land, business, bank accounts, life insurance policies, left in a trust with Jessica Moretti Caldwell and Ryan Caldwell as co-trustees. Page 2. A clause that gave them immediate power of attorney in the event of incapacity. Page 3. A handwritten note in Jessica's handwriting that had supposedly been witnessed by 2 nurses I'd never met. "Mom wants us to handle everything so she can rest." My signature was already at the bottom, forged perfectly. I felt the room tilt again, but this time it wasn't my heart. Ryan kept talking, calm, reassuring, the way a snake probably sounds right before it strikes. We also opened a new joint account for medical expenses, moved $2 million from the business line of credit, just temporarily, so bills are crazy these days. You don't have to worry about a thing. He slid a pen into my shaking hand. All you have to do is initial here, here, and here. Then you can sleep knowing Jess is protected. I stared at the pen. My fingers felt like they belonged to someone else. In that moment, I had two choices: sign and die quietly while they danced on my grave, or play along until I was strong enough to burn their whole plan to the ground. I chose option two. I let my hand tremble, easy, because it really was trembling, and scrawled my initials exactly the way I always do, except I added one tiny, almost invisible curl on the capital V that only a handwriting expert would ever notice. Ryan's shoulders relaxed. He actually exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. "You're amazing," he said, kissing my forehead. "I promise this stays between us for now." Jess is so emotional, she'll cry if she knows we're handling the hard stuff. I gave him a weak smile and closed my eyes like the drugs were pulling me under. The second he left the room, I pressed the call button with a strength I didn't know I still had. Nurse Maya appeared in seconds. I grabbed her wrist and whispered, voice like gravel, "Get me a phone, a private one, now." She saw the fire in my eyes and didn't ask questions. 10 minutes later, she smuggled in a burner phone from the gift shop. My first call was to Carla, my best friend of 30 years and the only person I still trusted with my life. "Carla," I rasped, "they're trying to bury me alive. I need you to do exactly what I say and tell no one, not even Jessica, that I called." That night, while Ryan and Jessica thought I was sleeping off another dose of morphine, I started building the trap that would catch them both. Because nothing makes a predator drop their guard faster than believing their prey only has 6 months left to live.